Now, in May 2025, the UK government released a very significantly impactful document, which was known as the White Paper, which was a series of different proposals that they think they would implement on immigration in a view to cut down immigration. Now, in result of that, there was a petition that was started by many people on work visas in the UK, and that petition has received over 10,000 plus signatures, and that has led to the UK government responding to this petition in a certain way. Now, if you are interested in knowing what was the petition, what exactly has the UK government said, and if you are a skilled worker in the UK, what can you do to protect yourself against some of the negative impacts that might be coming up in the next few months or years, then stick around to this video. But my name is Nikita and I make videos about living in the UK as a healthcare professional, working, clearing your HCPC registration, landing interviews and getting jobs if that is your dream to be a healthcare professional in the UK. And if any of this is of interest to you, do not forget to drop me a subscribe on YouTube, but also follow me on Instagram. My handle is Physiotherapy in UK. So let's get into the details of today's video. Let's talk about the white paper first and understand what's really happened. So like I said, the reason that the ILR was being pushed from 5 years to 10 years was because a lot of people who have come to the UK in the past 5 years were going to potentially get their ILR in the next few years. Now, as most of you all know, if you are on a work visa, you can work in a work visa for about 5 years. This does include your skilled worker visa, but can also include health and care visa, which is a part of the tier 2 skilled worker visa. Once you've worked on that for 5 years, you will be eligible for the ILR. Now, this is where the problem begins, because in the next 2 years, around 2 million people are expected to get their ILR. And this is what is massively concerning the British government, because they are worried that people who get the ILR and go on to then get citizenship are going to use benefits, which means that it's going to put a strain on the UK government. Now, don't get me wrong over here. I know that many of us may not even go on to use benefits, but this is something that the UK government has considered as a potential of happening, which is why they obviously brought out the white paper with one of the key points saying that they want to push the ILR from 5 years to 10 years, getting people to pay more taxes, be a part of the system, and integrate into the UK at a much later stage. Now, obviously, as soon as this news came up, a lot of people were massively concerned, and so people started questioning whether there was any way to work around this and to put forward our thoughts related to this. So what happened was somebody went onto the online portal and created a petition urging the UK government to consider that people who are already in the UK should not be applicable to the new rules where the ILR will be achieved only after 10 years. Now, this petition needs to at least gain 10,000 signs before it is even discussed, debated within the parliament. Now, this is not the debate where you see on screen where two houses are commonly fighting, but this goes on to be in a room at the side where people contemplate about whether the rules or the suggestions that people have said through the petition are valid and what they can do around it. In a matter of days, it gained over 1 lakh signs. And if I'm going to pull up the screen right here, you can see that the number of signatures on there are 1,46,726. Now, if you just read the heading or the sort of main data related to these petitions, it says that they want to keep the 5-year ILR route to existing skilled worker visa holders, and they suggest that do not apply the proposed 10-year ILR route to existing skilled worker visa holders. Keep the 5-year route for them who are already on this visa and apply the changes to any new applicants from the date of application. So this was one of the biggest things that was signed for in this petition, and as you can see, there are right now over 10 lakh people on the skilled worker visa. So I'm pleasantly surprised that only 1 lakh people have signed it, but that could be probably because this petition has not even reached many people, or even if it has, some people have not bothered signing it. In response to this petition, obviously the government has responded, and as you can see on your screens that will come up in a second, that this response was given on the 17th of June, so just less than a week ago. And what's really helpful to sort of see over here are some things that have been reiterated on the white paper, which again the UK government has just gone on to repeat. So these are bits of information that we already knew about, but what was really helpful to know is that they've really highlighted the fact that UK settlement is a privilege and not a right, and under the current system it is primarily qualified on the basis of the length of time spent in the UK, along with the life of knowledge test, which is used to verify British customs history and knowledge. This criteria does not reflect our strongly held belief that people should contribute to the economy and society before being settled in our country, and they fail to promote integration, which limits the wider benefit of long-term migration into UK and increases the pressure on public services. Now, this was obviously something that they have laid out very clearly in the white paper as well, so nothing has changed from there. The other really important thing to know though is that they have said that we will continue to offer a shorter pathway for settlement for non-UK dependents of British citizens for 5 years who have remained compliant with their requirements, and we will retain existing safeguards to protect vulnerable, including settlement rights for victims of domestic violence and abuse. So as this goes on to say right now, you understand that people who have been on specifically vulnerable situations, like people who have been exposed to domestic violence, will continue to be on the 5-year route, as well as people who are spouses, so who are on dependent visas for British citizens or people who have gained British citizens. So if you are somebody who is married to a British citizen, the 5-year route still stands for you as a part of this response. Now let's talk about what are the new bits of information that we have gained from this response to the petition. So firstly, they have said right here that we will consult on the details of the proposed changes later this year, including any proposed transitional arrangements for those already in the UK. These are important changes, and we recognize how important this issue is to people, and we will carefully listen to what they tell us in that consultation. So as a result of this, what they've gone on to say is that they understand that this is going to impact a lot of people, especially people who are living in the UK legally, paying their taxes, trying their best to stay within the requirements of their visa categories and the various restrictions placed on them. And based on that, they do not want to obviously do something too harsh. However, they haven't said that they are going to implement whatever is stated on this petition. So what they've gone on to say is that they will hold a further consultation. So not the one that they've had already. They're going to hold a further consultation in the future with people to place their ideas forward before they consider making any proposal or law. Now, the other thing you've got to remember at this stage is that the white paper was again a proposal and not a law. So we haven't received the documentation related to the final law yet. And this is what the petition response again goes on to say, is that we are grateful to the petitioners for setting out their views on the announcement ahead of the consultation process. And we look forward to hearing from them again when they've had the opportunity to study the final proposals in detail. Now, again, let me remind you here that the final proposal has not been published anywhere. It is still in the making. So what they are hoping to do is they are hoping to put out the final proposal, and following that they are hoping to hold a consultation again with all of the people who it is going to impact. So people like you and I who are probably in the UK on a work visa or planning to come here, and they are then going to have a bit of a discussion about whether this can be used for people who are already in the UK or not. So whether people who are already living in the UK, will they be eligible under the 5-year ILR route, or will they have to go under the 10-year ILR route? So now that we've gone through all of the response that the Home Office has put together, let's talk about what is going to happen in the future and what should be things that you are doing from now on. Now, a lot of videos on YouTube will say that, the Home Office has said that people who are paying their taxes well, or people who are in the healthcare background, such as doctors and nurses, are probably going to be exempt from it. Now, this is not very clearly laid out in the white paper anywhere. So I would take all of this news with a pinch of salt, because even though I am in the NHS and I'm working as a part of the healthcare system in the UK, we are not assuming, none of us are assuming that we will get the ILR as a part of this. This news continues to be a bit of a shock for you as much as it is for all of us who are working over here as well. So I would say that if some YouTuber is telling you that the ILR is going to be 5 years, if you are a healthcare professional working in the NHS or whatever role, then do not believe them, because like I've said, final proposals are not yet put into writing. So please do not verbally believe anything that is being said by anyone. On that note though, what you've also got to remember is that they haven't said very clearly in the white paper yet that all of these rules are going to be applicable retrospectively. So this means that, they haven't very clearly said that this rule is going to be applied to people who have already come and are working in the UK for the last 4 years, 3 years, how many ever years you've been, who are probably planning to apply for their ILR in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, why is this important to remember is that, again, statements like these tend to create a lot of panic, and as you can see, we've received well over 1,46,000 signatures on the petition, which was a really good thing because it's put perspective to the white paper, which obviously the UK government has to consider. However, I know that a lot of people have had sleepless nights over this topic, and so many people have messaged me, dropped me DMs on Instagram and on YouTube worrying about it. As previously happened in the past in the UK is that whenever they made changes, now these are recent changes that I'm talking about, say a year ago or maybe even a few months ago. So for example, when they introduced the student visa changes, saying that students were not allowed to get their dependents with them, or carers were not allowed to get their dependents with them, they did not apply those rules retrospectively. They applied it from the date the legislation was passed and for all of the visa applications that came from there on. Now, this is very crucial to know because, again, like we've said, that usually what the UK government has done in the past is not applied rules retrospectively. However, this is me saying that might potentially happen as a part of this ILR problem, because again, like I said, what they are really worried about is over 2 million people getting their ILR and British citizenship over the next 2 to 3 years. Now, what I would recommend to people who are already in the UK and are very close to getting your ILR, you might not be applying for your ILR or your British citizenship because of obviously financial restraints or problems with money. But if you are in a position where you are eligible to apply for ILR, please try and make those applications, whether it is by borrowing money from a friend or paying it on a credit card. Anything that you can do, go ahead and make those applications because the rules might change. If you are in a position where you are eligible, you've given your life in the UK test, you've given your English language requirements if you need them, make sure you're making those applications in the next few months because we don't honestly know what is going to happen. And that is also to say that if you are coming up for your ILR application in the next few months or in the next year, then make sure that you're completing all of the requirements for the ILR right now. So whether it is your life in the UK test, whether it is your English language requirements, whether it is all of the documentation you probably need in order to apply for the ILR, make sure you've collected all of it so that the date your ILR becomes open to you, you can go ahead and just make that application. And that sort of puts you in a good spot as compared to the rest of us here who are probably just waiting for our ILR, standing with our fingers crossed, hoping that the UK government does not change the rules in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, I hope that video makes sense, guys. And again, I'm going to leave the link for this video, which is the ILR video I've made previously, somewhere above. So feel free to check that out as the next video so that you gain a bit more clarity about it. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll see you in the next one.